What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be working on my friend's 2023 Nissan Z Proto. What we're going to be doing is installing a full 3-inch AAM exhaust as well as AAM catless downpipes. Stay tuned. Also, before we get too deep into the video, I did forget to record. I would recommend removing the engine cover as well as the front two wheels to give you more access into the engine bay. Also, be sure to have an O2 sensor socket so that you can transfer the original O2s to the new downpipes. One more thing, I would highly recommend buying a set of ratcheting metric wrenches. Without those, this job would have been absolutely horrible. So right now we're on the driver's side. The original OEM downpipes can be basically removed in two pieces. So that stud you're looking at right there is going to have a 14 mil nut on it that you're going to use some extensions to break loose. And that's what starts the removal of the lower section. So right now we are looking at the passenger side. What you're going to do is the exact same as the driver's side. As you see there, that hole had the stud and the 14 mil nut in there, but we've already removed them. You're just going to need to use a bunch of extensions. So right here, this is a picture of the flange of the lower passenger side downpipe. You're going to remove the top two bolts from above the car. Those are going to be 14 mils, and the bottom one you'll remove from below the car. So a tip for getting the upper downpipe bolts off is once you have the passenger side wheel removed, look right in there and you'll be able to see the socket. So if you have a second person, that's how you can make sure it is seated properly before you go ahead and impact. You're also going to need to use a 14 mil wrench to remove that nut. So you're going to need to release these two bolts by putting a 14 mil socket on one side and holding the nut on the back side with a 14 mil wrench.
This downpipe should be loose except for the oxygen sensor. All right, so I went ahead and stuck my arm up, my left arm through here, pushed it with my index finger, and then with my thumb and my middle finger, I pulled back on the harness, so that's good to go. This thing is loose and ready to come down.
So continuing on the passenger side here, we're gonna have two 14 millimeters that we're gonna need to remove. One of them will be right there. You're gonna use probably a swivel 14 with a long extension, and then that is another 14 we'll have to remove. So I ended up having a really hard time with that bolt right there, the hole that's in the center of the screen. What I had to do was use a really long 3/8 with a step down 1/2 inch to 3/8 on my impact with a swivel 14 head. And I had to impact it for, honestly, longer than I'd expect for a brand new car, but that's the trick that I used to get this bracket out. So ignore the fact that the original downpipe is back on. The two orange bolts on the left are two 14 millimeter bolts that we're gonna have to remove, and then we're gonna have 5 more 10 millimeters to remove the lower heat shield. So before you go ahead and try and remove the heat shields from either side, I would definitely recommend removing that black bracket that I have circled. I wasn't able to record much of this just because there really is no space to get in there. But as you can see in the very center of the screen, there's an open hole right there. That's a 10 mil I already removed. And obviously you're just gonna have to feel around there and try and find all 5 of them. It is a huge pain. There's no space. But right here, this is on the top side of the passenger side. That's why I said you're gonna want ratcheting wrenches, because there's a 10 mil in there and it's too close to that hard line for you to get a socket on it. One of the upper heat shield bolts, you can see right there, there's my wrench on it. It is a 1/4 inch wrench with a 10 mil on it. And you're gonna have to wedge it in between this heat shield, not attached to the downpipe. It's attached to chassis side. And you're gonna have to wedge it in there. Probably bend this, as you can see, just a little bit. But that's honestly the only way I can think of getting this out. And then you're gonna have to
bend flange. There's 2 bolts holding down the heat shield for the turbo. So they're 10 millimeter bolts.
There's no way for me to get a camera in there, but there's gonna be a bolt on the side of this heat shield. It's gonna be deep in there. there's literally no way for me to show you. But what you're gonna have to do is feel around in there. You might use a mirror. Honestly, you're gonna use your fingers, but you'll use a tiny, a 1/4 inch with a 10 mil on it, and there will be just enough space to get in there, and it's gonna be awful. So what we ended up doing, instead of removing that final nut, I almost had it basically out, but we decided it was just going to be easier to bend the heat shield, as you can see, and then we put an extension with a 13 millimeter swivel ratchet or swivel socket on it, and just loosened the turbo V-band.
That sucked.
Yes, it did. So for the driver's side, it's going to be a lot of the same. So I'm kind of going to breeze through this. Essentially, you just mirror what you did on the other side. Remove the two 14 millimeter flange nuts. This time the flange has 2, not 3 like the passenger side. So continuing on with the lower downpipe of the driver's side, you're going to remove 2 14 millimeter nuts, just like you did on the passenger side, and be sure to disconnect the O2 sensor before you remove the downpipe. So moving on to the driver's side, what we're going to do is have to remove this main heat shield, and we're going to have a couple 10 mil bolts. The first we're going to go to is the 2 10s directly underneath. Here's some perspective for you. So I'm going to go ahead and get my electric ratchet out and remove those first. So continuing with the driver's side downpipe, upper downpipe, there's going to be one of the 10 mils, not that hole. It's going to be essentially wrapped around the other side. So if you put your arm in here and then continue to feel around, it's really deep in there, but essentially now I have my finger touching it. I know you can't see, there's just no space to get on camera. But what you're gonna do is get a small 1/4 inch with a 10 mil on it, and you're gonna have to try and maneuver it in there, and you'll have to use your second hand to essentially feel to make sure it's seated, and of course then you're just gonna have to release. It's a total pain. I wish I could get the camera in there, but there's just no space. As you can see in this clip right here, I already do have one of the 10 mil bolts removed, but the second one is right there that you'll have to take out. So on the driver's side, I've had a pretty hard time with both of these 14 mils, but I was able to crack the one that you see the socket on by using a 3/8 ratchet with a deep 14 and an extension, and then threading it up just like this. And took a lot of pressure, but finally came out. But the bracket on the, I guess, transmission, essentially, what I did is, once again, used a deep 14 with an extension and a 3/8, and then set it up just so it went past the steering shaft, and then I used a breaker bar to give more leverage. So I think I see the final bolt for the heat shield on the driver's side. I'm gonna struggle to get it on camera properly, probably. But, okay, so if we look directly over the battery cover to the, oh, you can see it has that little brown rust spot right there. That is the final one we have to remove. So you can see the wrench right there with the, what do you call it? What's the other side called?
The circle? I just call it the circle.
The circle side on the nut, and you're gonna look, if you have 2 people, you're gonna look at the angle that I showed y'all earlier and make sure it's seated. All right, guys, so this angle is me shoving my phone in there to get y'all a view of the final nut I'm talking about. It's gonna be right next to the block. You'll see it right there, right in the center of your screen. It's just in such a bad spot. You can't get a socket on it, and you're gonna have to get a 10 mil wrench. There it is again. Once you break that loose, it's just gonna be a lot of turning. So on the driver's side, to get the very top nut that was the one that I showed you all earlier with like the circle of rust on it, we ended up just buying ratcheting 10 mil. Otherwise you're gonna have to do 1/8 turns for probably 10 minutes. And it was just a pain. So now what you have to do is essentially either bend these heat shields out or yank them, but they'll come So once you have the original downpipes removed and you take the O2 sensors out, I'd recommend using an O2 socket. If you don't have that, like we didn't, you can DIY it and use a 22 mil socket. But before you insert them into the new downpipes, you're gonna wanna put some high temp anti-seize on here, just on the threads. Make sure you do not coat the sensor itself, and then put some in the inlet flange on the downpipe.
Oh, sorry. You're good.
So once you have both downpipes mounted, you're gonna make sure to secure the V-band in a position where you're gonna be able to actually get a wrench on it or get a socket on it. And for the passenger side V-band right here, as you can see, the O2 sensor is basically too close to the downpipe itself. So what we're gonna do is zip tie that to this wire right here to keep it out of the heat. Okay. Ready? Yeah. Oh my God. That's awful. It sounded like a fart. Oh my gosh. That was horrible. So of course, if you're just doing a downpipe install, you won't have to follow the rest of this video. But since we were installing the full AAM 3-inch catback, what we had to do was continue removing the original exhaust. As you can see on screen right now, you will transfer those hangers over, the rubber hangers, onto the new AAM setup. You can remove those by loosening the chassis brackets with 2 10 mils. There will be 1 10 mil on each side. You can use some WD-40 to transfer over the rubber piece, as it'll probably be pretty secure on there. And from there, before you go ahead and tighten all the V-bands, make sure that you have the fitment that you want, and then tighten the V-bands one by one. And especially before you start the car, wipe the fingerprints off of the exhaust with acetone or at least some type of cleaner so that they do not get stained on there once you start the car. Also, above all else, make absolutely sure that before you start the car, you have the exhaust tips not too close to the bumper. I would highly recommend putting spacers on above the exhaust hanger bolts, because otherwise they can rub on the plastic and obviously that will burn from the heat. We kind of forgot to do this, and so it just barely rubbed and burnt, and that was just an easy preventative step that we forgot to take. Watching, guys. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Obviously, I'm sure you guys want to hear more of the exhaust. Unfortunately, I don't have enough space on my phone literally to make the video any longer, so I will be uploading a full exhaust clip for cold start, like flyby, launch control, all that stuff in just a couple days. So I'll have that linked in the description as well. Like I said at the start of the video, my videos are not yet monetized. So if you guys do want to help support the channel, or if this video did help you out, I'll have my PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App linked in the description. And if you guys do have any questions or anything like that, feel free to shoot me an email. I have that linked in the About page or About section of my YouTube, or just shoot me a DM on Instagram. Thanks again. Oh shit.
Never mind.
What?
It feels a lot faster.
That feels a lot fucking faster.
It doesn't have as much torque. Or is that me?
I don't know. That felt a lot fucking faster.
Holy shit. Holy shit.
Oh my god.
shit! Holy
Nah, that's crazy. That's night and day.
Hit start.
Got it. Bro. That's crazy. And I was tripping earlier today.
You're tripping right now. I can tell you that much.
Get under this fucking car. Look at your exhaust.
Oh, wait, this? What? I know what it looks like.
Like the side that's closest to me, like those two pipes.
Yeah.
Those are like maybe 10 inches apart.
Yeah.
Look under this car.
Well,
And this. Brother.
oh, we're missing an H pipe.
Yeah.
It comes with the exhaust, you dumbass.
Wait, oh.
Yeah.
You're gonna be driving like that for a week.
No.
Ah! No, that's crazy.